Hey guys, Dan here. Welcome to Dan Reviews It. This is a Weeds Season 1 review. It's sort of part of our classic TV Rewind series that I started a while ago. We do it very sporadically here on the channel, but when there's a show that I'm passionate about or that I want to sort of do more specific reviews of than just like an overview, then that's what we do. And so the reboot of Weeds is coming to Stars, and it's going to take place about 10 years after the original ended in 2012. And I don't really know too much about it yet, but leading up to that, I'm going to review all the individual seasons of Weeds, and it's part of this book, even the 1001 TV shows you must watch before you die. I'm sort of trying to go through all of these in really no particular order, although I kind of like want to watch the early ones and sort of work my way through. But you know, when I saw the Weeds reboot was popping up, I thought, well, you know what, I have always liked this show, and I've never actually gotten to finish it. I've seen the first few seasons several times, and for whatever reason, just, you know, I was watching other things and I just fell out with it, and I don't have Showtime, I never have, so I had to eventually like catch them on DVD. So you know, I've never made it all the way through. I usually end up stopping at like season 3 or 4. So what better time, you know, with the reboot coming than to do that? So I went ahead and watched season 1 again for probably like the 4th or 5th time, and that's what we're going to be reviewing today. But this is a part of the book. You can see it right here, right across actually from How I Met Your Mother. But there's a picture of Nancy in the bathtub. This book basically just tells you, you know, details about shows that the publishers think are important, and I agree with some of their choices. I do not agree with some of their choices, but I do think Weeds is a great show for people to watch. So definitely, to me, belongs in the 1001 shows you must watch before you die. So season 1 of Weeds, this aired on Showtime, by the way, even though the new series is going to be on Stars. This aired on Showtime, one of really their early flagship shows. I mean, HBO had already been well established with, you know, The Sopranos and Sex and the City and Curb Your Enthusiasm, but, you know, Showtime was a little bit later to the party. They had a couple of early hits. They did the original Gary Shandling show back in the 80s, but really it wasn't until like after 2000 that Showtime really started producing great original content, in my opinion. And so here we are from back in 2005. It aired sort of towards the end of the summer when, you know, networks didn't have much new on. So it was perfect. It aired starting in August and ran through October of 2005. And I'm not going to go through, you know, episode by episode, just sort of review the season as a whole. And we basically start with, I guess, the whole premise of the show is what I'll talk about first. And that is in this little town of Agrestic, California, I guess it is. Is it California? I think it is. But anyway, yeah, it's a suburb of LA. And Mary Louise Parker plays Nancy Botwin, who is the matriarch of a family who just lost the father not too long ago. He had a heart attack, and he is played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan in a couple of episodes from a video camera. We don't actually ever see him, at least not in the first season. There's no like flashbacks or anything, but we do see both her and one of her sons watching old video of him. And when I first saw this show, I think I had already seen him on Grey's Anatomy, because I didn't watch Weeds when it first aired. I think I watched it a couple of years later, because like I said, I had to get it on DVD. So by the time I saw it, I knew Jeffrey Dean Morgan from being Denny on Grey's Anatomy, who dies, and then within that same time period, I watched the first couple seasons of Supernatural. He's the dad in that, and he dies. And then, like, Watchmen, the movie, came out around that time. He dies in that. So, to me, I'm like, okay, well, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's just the guy that dies in everything. Plays a good dead guy, I suppose. But so we only see him a little bit in this, but it's mostly about Nancy and her family and really her community as well. So she has two boys, Shane and Silas. Um, and Shane is the young one. He is, I don't know, like young middle school, like fifth grade, sixth grade maybe, and then Silas is in high school, and they're both dealing with the loss of the father. Shane is taking it out more aggressively in doing these like pretend torture videos and stuff, and Silas takes out his grief more sexually as he hooks up and becomes boyfriends with the deaf girl in school, who apparently is great at oral sex, and so he wants to find out for himself, and they sort of get into a fight over it, but then she decides to be with him. So they're together through most of the season. And then her brother-in-law comes in, I think, episode 3, and he shows up. That is Justin. What is his name? I've seen him in a few things. Justin Kirk. So he plays the brother-in-law, Andy, and he is just a troublemaker. He's a real good uncle to the kids. They love him, but he's unorthodox. He is really out there. And he gives bad advice to the kids. At one point, he actually has a sexting conversation with his nephew's girlfriend, the deaf girl, because it's online. She doesn't realize it's the uncle and not Silas. So that causes a fight. But he's like, "Hey, man, I opened the door for you. Now she knows you're ready to go." He's that kind of uncle. And then before we get to the group of friends, I suppose, let's talk a little bit about Nancy herself. If you don't know, she is a drug dealer. I mean, that's the whole point of Weeds, is that she is making ends meet, getting by with dealing in weed. And she does that, with this group of it's a black family, but it's like a mother and a daughter, and then I think Romany Malco is sort of just like, he might be a nephew or something, or a cousin, but they're all sort of a big family, and she goes there and gets her weed from them, and we kind of find out along the way that she is not as smart as she thinks she is. She has a lot to learn in the biz, and they kind of are teaching her along the way. But also, they don't suffer fools, so, when she messes up or she doesn't have their money or whatever, they do what they need to do. They will take her car until she gets the money or whatever to try and teach her a lesson. So that dynamic is great. I love the gal that plays Halia, who's like her main supplier. What is her name? Tanya Patano? It's Tonye. I would say that's Tanya, but I've never heard it pronounced, so I don't know. But she plays Halia, and she's great. And then Romany Malco is great as well as Conrad, who Nancy kind of has a thing for, and it is mutual. Before I continue with the rest of the cast, the one thing that struck me as I was watching this season over again is I forgot how much happens in this first season. Like, it's just like non-stop, plot points and, great lines and great characterization. And these are, just 25, 28-minute episodes, and there's only 10 of them, and there's so much that happens in this first season. Like, when I thought back, I thought a lot of this stuff happened in 2 seasons. But no, it comes at you full force. So her main friends, you could say, or I mean, Celia is a frenemy, I would say. They're definitely friends, but I mean, she's a lot to deal with. And that's Celia Hodes, played by Elizabeth Perkins, who I always love. I mean, that goes back to the movie Big with Tom Hanks. I mean, I've always liked Elizabeth Perkins. And she's really funny in this. She's kind of the town bitch. Everybody sort of hates her but respects her also. She's like the head of the PTA, and you can't go against anything she says, but everybody sort of fears her and hates her at the same time. Nancy kind of tells it like it is to her, but a lot of people are too scared to. That's a whole sort of subplot, and then also her daughter, who is played by somebody that we've seen in so many things. Ali Grant plays her daughter Isabel. We've seen her in The Goldbergs and Suburgatory and a bunch of things, but this is like one of her really first things, and she's pretty young in this. I would say maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12. And she's like real chubby, and that becomes a major plot point, with Celia trying to slim her down and, really just being nasty to her about that kind of stuff. And then in one of the first season episodes, we see Celia's own mother, and we see, okay, well, this is what Celia had to deal with as well, so it's like maybe it's not all her fault. It really, humanizes that character. So that's one of the main, friends of the show, or of the main family, I should say. And then the other one is Kevin Nealon as Doug, who is great in this. I never really got that into Kevin Nealon. I thought he was funny as the Weekend Update anchor on SNL, but I didn't think any of his skits were particularly that funny. And I never saw him really do much else. A movie here or there, like he was in some of the Sandler movies. But, it wasn't till Weeds that I really saw how good of an actor he is, how good of a comedic foil he is. He's basically Nancy's top buyer, I guess. Him and his poker buddies. And I've learned to really come around on Kevin Nealon ever since this show, really. I watch, it's not that good of a show, but I watch Man with a Plan with Matt LeBlanc, and he plays the brother on that. And him and Conan go way back from the SNL days, so whenever he's on Conan, they have a great rapport, and they're really funny together. So I'm all in on Kevin Nealon. He's great. And his general character is, well, he's a lawyer, but generally he is, in a loveless marriage, and him and Celia hate each other, which is great for the show. But him and Nancy are tight, and Nancy deals to him and all his buddies. And in one of the episodes, he discovers edibles, and more specifically going to a dispensary, because back when this aired, it had sort of just become legalized in some parts of the U.S. for medicinal purposes. So, he gets his card, and he goes and everything, and Nancy, crashes their one poker game and is like, hey guys, I'm with you, yeah, that's great, you can go to the dispensary, but, they do take your ID, and now you're in the government database for, smoking pot and all this, and she really scares everybody into going back to her. Okay, so like I said, there's a lot going on in this. That's the basic people and the basic plot of the show. But this season has so much going on. So we find out about halfway through the season that Celia has cancer, as her and her husband are deciding to get a divorce, and so we sort of, again start to feel bad for her, but then she ends up sort of using the cancer as a crutch, and so she's very horrible and very funny. She really is a great character that you love to hate, and Elizabeth Perkins plays her so well. So that's sort of an ongoing thread as well, plus they're divorced too, and just the whole family dynamic there with the Hodeses. And then in terms of, Nancy and her business, she's kind of learning the ropes, like I said. She recruits some high school kids to, she's getting big enough that she can sort of hire out and farm out some of her supply to other people and that kind of thing. And she's also trying to figure out how to get a side business, like a front business. So she settles on a bakery, so there's a lot going on with that, and setting it up, and her interactions with everybody, including, some of the other drug dealers in town. One specifically who, starts leaving her pennies, stacks of pennies all over the place, which I guess in the drug world is the horse's head next to you in bed, kind of means just yo, you're we're gonna cut you off, kind of thing. And so she ends up, dealing with him head on, and then they have sex, and so now, they're sort of buddy buddy or whatever. But the story ends. The first season ends with this gentleman played by Martin Donovan, I think is the actor's name, and he's been in like a bunch of things. But Weeds, I would say, is how I most know him. But he's done a bunch of different things. But Martin Donovan plays the father of a son that Shane is wrestling with, and the kid is played by the little boy from Spy Kids, the redhead. And so Shane ends up biting his leg at the wrestling tournament, and so of course Nancy's like freaking out, like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," And Martin Donovan comes on and plays Peter, the dad, and he basically kind of falls for Nancy as they're sort of on the apology cycle of the whole wrestling tournament, and so he's recently, I think, divorced, and she's of course recently widowed. So they sort of strike up a friendship from that, and end up sleeping together in the final episode of the season. And then the last shot of the season is she's getting out of bed after their night of love, and she puts on his jacket to keep warm, and she sees in the mirror it says DEA on the back. He is a drug enforcement official, and so that's how the season ends. And I thought, like I said, I thought a lot of this was like spread over a couple of seasons, but it's all so jam packed in this first season. Jaw dropping the first time I saw that episode. I was like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? And thank God, I was a few years late, so I think the first 3 seasons were out on DVD by the time I saw this. So I was able to rent. At that time, you went to Blockbuster and you rented your TV on DVD. So I rented the second season right away and watch some more. I think there's 12 episodes in the second season, actually. But I think this is a great show. Like I said, I don't know where it goes after about the 3rd or 4th season. I think there's 7 seasons overall. But I'm definitely going to be along for the ride. And this is, one of those shows, like I said, it was one of their first shows on Showtime to really pop big in like a pop culture way. And with that, this is also in that sort of pantheon of like great anti-heroes, because I mean Nancy is a mess, and obviously she's like a drug dealer, but you feel for her because A, she just lost her husband, B, she's just trying to do the best she can for her family and provide for them, and C, we see in the very first episode when she farms out the dealing to one of the other kids in high school, she tells them, like, do not sell to kids, like, you can't do that, da 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 da. So it's like you see right away that, okay, like, she does have a conscience, So this is sort of, precursor to Walter White, obviously, and not that this show was the first to do it either. I think Tony Soprano himself certainly had a lot of those anti-hero, qualities about his character, which mostly we saw kind of come out in his therapy sessions. But here, we see it come out in Nancy herself. I mean, she's basically an open book with certain people, for better or worse. Sometimes it's to her detriment, certainly. But this is definitely one of those things where it's like it was nominated in the comedy category at the Emmys and the Golden Globes. For me, I don't know. I mean, I think it's definitely a comedy, but it has a lot of dramatic moments. I think this came out probably right around the same time as Desperate Housewives, which I think is similar. I think that was more silly than realistic. I think this is a more realistic portrayal of suburban life. But I think the two are definitely sort of both in that dramedy category. But I think Weeds definitely is humorous, but there's a lot of like dropping action in it, and all that kind of stuff. It was created by, I think her name is pronounced Genji Kohan. And she is the one who also brought Orange is the New Black to the small screen, based on the book by Piper Kiernan. So, she definitely has that, sense of humor where it's like it's real dark, but it's funny, but then also the dramatic parts really hit hard as well. And I think, she has that here as well. I hope this doesn't fall off like Orange is the New Black did. I still have one season left in Orange is the New Black, but I watched the first, 6 or 7 seasons so far. And after like the first 3 or 4 seasons, it definitely falls off in quality as the cast of characters becomes crazy big, and we're meeting new people that we don't necessarily like, and all that kind of thing. So, not loving that, but hopefully Weeds stays more consistent than that all the way through, I would hope. But in its first year, Weeds was Showtime's highest rated series. It had around 1 million viewers, which, at that time for a pay cable channel, especially one that was not HBO, is fantastic. When you think about it. Everybody does such a good job here. The scripts are just, crackling. Everything, is firing on all cylinders here. This particular season also got them some nominations. Mary Louise Parker was nominated for Best Performance in a musical or comedy on television for acting. And I think, that was it for the Golden Globes. But yeah, got nominated actually she won, I think. And then Elizabeth Perkins was nominated for supporting actress. One of the episodes was nominated for Outstanding Directing in a Comedy Series the first season, and it was nominated for other smaller awards too, like casting and main title design. Which, by the way, I love the theme song "Little Boxes." It's so perfect and sort of really describes the suburban life. But so right from the gate, this thing was a hit. Obviously, it was attracting audiences and critics and awards and all of that stuff. So I loved it. This is a great first season. I give it an A for Weeds season 1. It's hard to start out so strong because right away, they've established everything in that first episode. We get a sense of all the characters, and all the characters are also pretty much defined. They change throughout the series. Well, at least, the first half of the series that I've seen. But they're all very, very defined right out of the gate. And that is not an easy task at all. One of the things that Merlin and I talked about, my co-host on the Frasier Friday shows, when we were reviewing all the seasons of Frasier, one of the things we said about the first episode was, like, it really does set the stage. The characters are all there, from the beginning. But, look, we knew Frasier at least from 11 years on Cheers, or however long he was on. I guess he was on for 9 years or whatever. But here, everything's new to us. Everybody's fresh, and they get the family dynamic down. They get the drug dealing dynamic down. They get the suburban dynamic down. And even the ancillary characters. Right away that Celia's kind of the villain, of the town, sort of. Or at least in these characters' lives, she is. And by the end of the season, also, people are finding out about Nancy's business. Her maid finds out about it. She sees a bunch of weed stuffed in a pillow, and she hands it to her at the end of the first episode and says, or at the end of the finale, and says, "Hey, I want a raise." Her oldest son is starting to figure it out as well, Silas. He makes a comment to her about selling it, and takes her totally off guard, and sort of balance of power shifts a little bit because he's like, "Well, I got something on you now, Mom." Not that they have a super contentious relationship, but he is like 16 or whatever, so obviously he's at that stage. Where he's trying to rebel. But yeah, just everything is firing on all cylinders in this show, in this season. I'm very excited to see what the upcoming seasons have in store. And then we will launch right into the reboot on Starz pretty much at the end of all of my reviews. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed the Weeds Season 1 review. We'll see you back next time for another edition of Weeds Wednesday here on the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.